Good afternoon, Startup Canadians. My name is Kayla Isabel, and I am the CEO here at Startup Canada. I am so delighted to welcome you here today at the closing of Small Business Week. I can't believe it is already Friday. To begin, I'd like to acknowledge that the land on which I am on today is located on the unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. I also acknowledge with respect the diverse histories and cultures of all Indigenous peoples. We'd like to encourage each of you tuning in today to also take a moment to acknowledge the land that you are residing on today. As many of you have seen, Startup Canada has been active all week during Small Business Week, connecting entrepreneurs both domestically and internationally to have their voices heard and share insights as a part of our new Startup Gov program. This program has a strong mandate to provide every single entrepreneur with a voice to government to really create the conditions necessary for entrepreneurial success in Canada. None of this would be possible, however, without our key ecosystem partners, including our co-presenting partners, UPS and Intuit QuickBooks, national partners, MasterCard, BDC, and the Trade Commissioner Service, community partners, Scotiabank, Google, NACA, and the Village Hive, and today's event partner, Magnet. Thank you so much for your support of Canada's entrepreneurs. The event that you're tuned into today is called En Route to Disruption, Ontario's role in the national innovation ecosystem. And we're going to be examining the very important role the province of Ontario plays in Canada's innovation ecosystem. Prior to introducing our moderator for today, I'd like to introduce a special guest, the Honourable Minister Fedeli, Ontario's Minister of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade, who's here to share a few opening remarks. Over to you, Minister.
Thank you, Kayla. Good afternoon, everyone. It's an honor to join everybody today as we draw a close to Small Business Week. And Kayla, a huge thank you to you for organizing this event, you and your whole team, for everything Startup Gov does to advocate for Ontario's entrepreneurial community. Ontario's innovation ecosystem is leading the way in Canada. We're proud to be home to a world-class academic and research community that cuts across sectors, across disciplines, and government. And that's what's special about Ontario. It's where innovations, platforms, and technologies meet the might of our incredible industrial and manufacturing sectors. It's the place to test new, innovative ideas and see them through to commercialization. A place that can drive real economic growth for the next generation. Ontario is where artificial intelligence is ushering in an era of safer, cleaner, and more connected transportation. Talk about Invest Ontario. It's our new investment attraction agency and one of the pillars of our government's recovery plan. The agency builds on the many benefits of coming to Ontario, including a high quality of life, highly skilled talent pool, strong and growing innovation sector, and the right supports that can help businesses thrive. Invest Ontario is essential in an era where competing jurisdictions are becoming more and more aggressive in securing major investments that generate jobs and growth. So this agency will promote the province as an attractive investment destination and will focus on key sectors that are already primed for growth and expansion, like advanced manufacturing, life sciences, and technology. Invest Ontario will help secure anchor investments that will create jobs, diversify the economy, create new opportunities across value chains, and provide new sources of revenue to support continued investments for the people of Ontario. Amid global economic uncertainty, we must let the world know that Ontario is still open for business. Now, innovation comes in many forms, and there isn't a one-size-fits-all to investing in new ideas. Our government understands this, which is why we support the Investment Accelerator Fund managed by Mars. The fund has been extremely successful to date, and as a result has been entirely self-sufficient for the past 2 years. For every $1 invested, the IAF has leveraged more than $20 for the investee companies. And this has led to more than $1.6 billion in follow-on capital and the creation of more than 5,100 jobs. The IAF is one of the most active seed funds in the province. It actually has a portfolio of more than 160 companies, which is about 3 times the size of a comparable private firm. Clearly, venture capital plays an important role in creating the next generation of jobs and driving economic growth. This is why Ontario continues to support, promote, and catalyze new early stage and VC investments and the growth of our entire VC ecosystem. And our strategic investments don't end there. We renewed our Ontario Together Fund. Now, the fund focuses on supporting homegrown manufacturing and innovation to combat COVID-19 and provide other critical goods to health, safety, and security of Ontarians under 3 strategic pillars: strengthening Ontario's domestic manufacturing capacity, supporting homegrown technologies and innovative solutions, and strengthening Ontario's medtech ecosystem. So we know that supporting and investing in domestic innovation and manufacturing is a crucial step that will help unleash Ontario's economic might. So think about our newly renewed $50 million Ontario Together Fund. Also, with the Canadian manufacturers and exporters, we're celebrating a month of activities to recognize the contributions of our manufacturing sector. Manufacturing Day was October 1st. The day was designated to celebrate Ontario's manufacturers, their hardworking employees, and a collective commitment to ensuring that Ontario maintains its status as the economic engine of Canada. During October, we're acknowledging all Ontario-based manufacturers, from the small 3D print shops to the large automakers. This is an opportunity for young people to learn about the high-value, high-tech, high-skilled, and high-paying career opportunities manufacturing offers, especially as the province begins to make the next generation of vehicles. Now, what truly makes Ontario stand out from the crowd is our people. From Ontario's skilled workforce of highly qualified technical professionals to our universities and colleges that provide a stream of high quality talent, Ontario is home to an incredible talent pool that has made us an attractive jurisdiction for innovative businesses set up operations in North America. The role Ontario's talented people and workforce play in helping attract investment brings increased urgency and importance to the need for a strong domestic intellectual property environment. A strong domestic IP environment means that these businesses are more likely to stay and grow right here in Ontario, building up our innovation ecosystem and strengthening our economy. The province has so much potential to forge more public-private sector partnerships to further shared priorities. Our government's support of and investment in high-impact collaborations among SMEs, corporations, academia, and non-for-profits will bring together the best companies, researchers, and incubators that others will look to us as Ontario leads innovation ecosystem into the future. And the future is looking bright and full of opportunity for those willing to make a difference. We'll continue to take all the steps to create a more competitive environment for job creators. Our decisions will always be informed by feedback from organizations like Startup Gov and the companies represented by your panel members today. You've got a great group of people. Thanks, and really enjoy today's session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister, for those remarks and for everything that you do to champion innovation in Ontario. I'm unbelievably inspired, and we haven't even started the panel yet. Thank you again for joining us.
Great, thank you.
I would now like to introduce the fabulous Sonia Shorey, Vice President of Strategy, Marketing, and Communications with Invest Ottawa, who's going to be leading the conversation today. Over to you, Sonia.
Thank you so much, Kayla. It is an honor to be with you and with all participants today on behalf of Invest Ottawa, lead economic development agency for knowledge-based industries here in the capital, and ARIX.O, the futureplex of innovation and collaboration for disruptive technologies and smart mobility, autonomy, and connectivity. I also want to thank the entire Startup Canada team for their incredible collaboration and leadership on so many shared objectives, including accelerating and enabling the growth and success of so many entrepreneurs and firms from every walk of life that we collectively serve. Today's panel is coined En Route to Disruption, Ontario's role in the national innovation ecosystem. It could not be more timely or more critical as we emerge slowly from the pandemic and drive our economic recovery. We know that disruptive opportunity is not simply national, it is global. It's an opportunity for Ontario to punch above its weight, to demonstrate bold leadership, to leverage our disruptive technology, talent, and innovation strengths, and drive action and impact around the world. And there is no greater time to do that than this. Today, we will deliver inspiration and actionable insight to you with our amazing panelists. We do invite you to share questions through YouTube, and we will aim to address as many as possible towards the end of our session. Without further ado, it is my honor to introduce to you the three leaders who join me today, and they are all truly driving change in our innovation ecosystem. Please join me in welcoming Young Wu, Chief Executive Officer for Mars Discovery District. Welcome, Young. Dr. Claudia Kriwick, President and CEO, Ontario Centre of Innovation. Welcome, Claudia. And Matt Whittick, Founder and CEO of Fill It Forward. Matt, I just want to share, right? Thank you so much. Amazing, amazing innovation. We're going to open up today's panel with a bit of a state of the union. So we're emerging from the pandemic in an incredibly unpredictable global economy. It's a new and dynamic world. Our tech sector is set to smash venture capital records with an unprecedented number of mega deals, many in excess of 100 million. The war for top tech talent is more global and mobile than ever. The construct of a traditional team and workforce office completely dismantled. Supply chains are stifled. Digitization, technology adoption is table stakes. Net zero economy is giving rise to this amazing new generation of technologies, companies, and advantages. And an inclusive economic recovery is paramount. It is truly unprecedented. To set the stage for our discussion today, I would love to hear your perspective on what you believe to be the state of Ontario's innovation ecosystem, our strengths, our challenges, and of course, our differentiators. Perhaps, Young, I will open up and throw it over to you.
Okay, let me give it a shot, but I'm really interested in hearing what I expect Claudia and Matt to be able to elaborate on. So first of all, thanks for this opportunity, Sonia and Kayla. Great opportunity with Startup Gov. I think we really need to convene these discussions, and I was so happy to hear Minister Fedeli outline a bit of the plan going forward, because that is the key for Ontario to not just do the business as usual, but to really use this window of opportunity to create a global opportunity for Ontario. And quite honestly, because Ontario is at least 40% of what Canada does, for Canada overall as well. Quite honestly, when I was thinking about this, maybe we're now into month 18 of the bumpiness of this pandemic as we sort of try and escape the variants. When I was thinking about this about 15 months ago, I thought there was a serious potential that we would have to push reset on this entire ecosystem. It's taken us 15 plus years to build, right, Claudia? That's what was keeping me up awake at night. It turns out that the innovation ecosystem, I'll come back and define this in just a second, but the innovation ecosystem was the only aggregate sector to really increase and build and grow during this past 18 months. That really says something, because typically, if you think about the innovation ecosystem, it's the startups plus the advanced industries that use innovation in order to run their businesses. I think in Canada, it's already 12% of GDP. And I think it already employs 10% of employment in Canada. Ontario, roughly 40% of all that. The thing is, it's growing at over 3 times the rate of any other sector. I'm talking oil and gas, forestry, mining, it doesn't matter. So when I think about the future that's driven by Ontario, I think about the fact that what we're emerging into is essentially powered on the backbone of the innovation economy. And therein is our opportunity. I spent most of my career as a serial entrepreneur, private equity investor before retiring, and then came back out to Mars. But what I saw was that we actually have something really, really special here, which is a connected ecosystem. It's incredibly hard to build, but it results in the ability for us to kind of continue to create a recurring launch pad for great companies. The one thing that killed companies before, in my experience, was inertia. Anytime we could actually take out transaction costs and increase velocity and assemble the resources that were required for entrepreneurs, that's when we actually increased the rate of success. And that's when we took out the choke points for failure. So I think I just want to stop there, Sonia, and just say that, look, I think this is our opportunity. We have momentum behind us. Improbable that we created this momentum during the worst period in history. But what can happen if we harness that during the best time going forward after this particular period? So I'll stop there.
I could not agree more. And there's such strong collaboration across so many of the organizations that comprise our innovation ecosystem. And I know, Claudia, you at OCI support so many and are driving so much opportunity. I'd love to hear your perspective.
Thank you, Sonia. And I just want to thank you for the opportunity to participate in this panel, in this discussion. I want to echo and pick up on some of the points that Young has made. The last 18 months, which is almost the last 2 years, have been incredibly challenging globally. And I think we can't forget that we were, and many parts of the world still are, in crisis. What has happened over the last 2 years has been unprecedented. And yet, when you look at the innovation ecosystem in Ontario, it has demonstrated that it is resilient, that it is nimble. One of the things that has characterized the innovation ecosystem in Ontario over the last 18 months is that nimbleness, that ability to pivot. Companies like CleanWorks, who before the pandemic were focused on the food processing sector, had an innovative technology that was sanitizing fruits and vegetables for companies like Sunkist, were able to pivot on a dime, rework their technologies to help sanitize PPEs at a time when our supply chains were disrupted, when we had frontline workers that were reusing masks because there was no availability of masks. We also had companies like Shopify that emerged as giants and took on large global leaders like Amazon and seized opportunities. And so the question is, how did that happen? How did Ontario's innovation ecosystem survive, not only survive, but in some ways thrive in terms of being able to seize some of these opportunities and address some of these challenges? Young mentioned it, collaboration. I think one of the things that distinguishes Ontario and the different players in the innovation ecosystem, so the colleges, the universities, the regional innovation centers like Mars Communitech, Invest Ottawa, Tech Alliance, NORCAT up in Northern Ontario, and others, the hundreds and thousands of small businesses, startup companies, scale-up companies, organizations like the Ontario Centre of Innovation and others, and also the efforts by government. It's the ability to collaborate and to coordinate. I think that what Ontario has is really unique in this regard, not only in Canada, but in globally. The very high levels of collaboration between industry, between academia, and between government, and then the ability to, in a very creative, nimble, and powerful way, to work in collaboration and in coordination. And I think that will also prove to be incredibly important as we not only emerge and recover and rebuild, but rebuild better, rebuild stronger, and rebuild more powerfully as we come out of this pandemic. And so I think that's important to note. The last 18 months have been extraordinary, from the challenges that they presented, but also the opportunities that they provided for collaboration, and some of the new market opportunities that entrepreneurs, not only in Ontario and Canada, but globally, are going to be able to seize. And so I'll just stop there.
And it's a marvelous segue because, of course, when I think about the raison d'etre of our three organizations, Jean Claudia, and for myself at Invest Ottawa, we're all about supporting, enabling, and driving the success and the growth of entrepreneurs like Matt. And so, we'd love to hear your perspective as someone who's living this day to day as a founder, and what you are seeing across the innovation ecosystem and how that's impacting your firm.
Yeah, first off, Sonia, as well, thanks so much for the opportunity to be here today. What a great panel and a super important discussion. I think Young and Claudia, touched on a lot of really important things. Overall, I would say as an organization that's really benefiting from Ontario's innovation economy, it's a really exciting time, I think. In fact, I haven't been more excited, in the last couple of years as I am right now in this moment, because I think collectively organizations like ours, and Claudia mentioned a couple, but there's many hundreds, thousands of organizations that are really, at a time building resilience over the last 18, 20 months. We've had these great government supports that have certainly helped many organizations keep the lights on at a time that we really needed it. And it's allowed many companies to continue to double down on some really important things around product, creating new products, investing in our technologies, enhancing our technologies. It's allowed us to create operating efficiencies. And now we're kind of in this moment where I believe the world's about to wake up from a 2-year sleep, a nearly 2-year sleep, and in some cases a nightmare. And I feel very prepared to meet the moment. And a lot of that is because of the innovation and the investment in innovation in Ontario and really across the country.
Actually able to put those opportunities, those resources to work through the innovation ecosystem during what is clearly one of the most difficult times in our history. But as we come forward and we slowly emerge from the pandemic, we know that there are opportunities and we've started to touch on them. I'd love to hear from each of you about what really excites you when you look forward about some of those great opportunities that lie ahead, and more importantly, how we capitalize on them. I don't know, who'd like to jump in? That's a really big, broad question.
Can I maybe build on? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Claudia.
No, go ahead, Young. It's fine.
Well, I had to kick off last time, so I'm going to let you go. I'll carry your bags after that.
Thank you. So one of the things that really excites me is let's kind of look at what 2021 looks like right now. What are the key drivers? And Sonia, you mentioned some of them in your opening remarks. So accelerating digitization. The pandemic not only has accelerated digitization, but it's taken it Main Street. We have mom and pop shops that are now online and they're selling and doing business digitally. And you know what? They're not going back. And so one really exciting opportunity is this accelerated digitization. And this is an opportunity that is especially exciting because at the same time as we have accelerating digitization, we have accelerating technology development. So 5G and next generation networks are here. There are test beds. There are living labs across the province of Ontario where SMEs are able to test their technologies, are able to develop new applications related to connected and autonomous vehicles. Some of the great work that's happening in Ottawa, for example, with Invest Ottawa. We have AI. And the world is looking at Canada as a global center of excellence in terms of when it comes to the talent for AI and the generation of new and innovative applications of AI. Every single company that we see at OCI, irrespective of what sector they are in, irrespective of what kind of challenge or solution that they are trying to solve, they are powered by AI. And the power of AI is exponential, and it presents the opportunity for us to address challenges in an unprecedented way. And then the fight against climate change. That has been the paradigm shift, I think, over the last couple of years. It happened at the same time as the pandemic, but now the whole world is in agreement that we need to fight climate change. And these are very exciting opportunities for Canadian entrepreneurs specifically, because Canada has the opportunity to develop the technologies, export them to the world that will significantly mitigate climate climate change. And then finally, IP and data. These are now the world's most valuable business and national security assets. And if we look at our innovation ecosystem, if we look at all of the entrepreneurs that we work with, if we look at all of the tech companies and the industries, we have in Canada, in Ontario, especially, I believe, a very unique opportunity through collaboration between various industries, between big and small companies, between the public and private sectors, to unlock some of the power of that data and develop IP and commercialize IP here in a way that not only has economic benefit in Ontario, but helps us address some of the global challenges that we're facing today. I'll stop there and sit back to Young, because I can keep on going. It's a really exciting time.
I was inspired, Claudia. I wouldn't mind, but maybe we can get Matt to weigh in. It's interesting because I've now retired from my entrepreneurial career for too many years to actually remember the experience. And in many ways, thankfully, I don't remember some parts of it. But Matt, you're living the journey right now. I'd be really curious to hear what it's like these days, because I remember what it was like before these days.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we have enough time to go into all of it, yeah, to be totally honest, but it's been a wild ride, definitely the last 18 months or so, in many ways. So at Fill It Forward, we're really focused on the circular economy. We're focused in particular on reuse and inspiring people to reuse. And there was a time at the beginning of the pandemic where we didn't know if anybody was going to reuse a bag when they go to the grocery store again, or a reusable water bottle when they go to the airport. So what I would sort of build maybe on Claudia's answer a little bit in terms of technology in particular, and clean tech and the advancement of clean tech, and I think it really speaks maybe to Ontario's point of differentiation as well. We're really focused on clean tech within the innovation side, and I think that's going to really help and benefit many organizations just like ours. You know, I saw recently that, you know, I think there's 134,000 people or so that are employed in clean tech. There's 5,000 companies, and there's going to be global demand for what we're working on today as Ontario-based companies. So, you know, outside of the many challenges that we've had as an organization and many companies like ours, I couldn't be more optimistic and excited about where we're headed in 2022 and beyond.
No, it's fantastic. Different challenges today, but in many ways the same things that were choke points before too. And I would just want to build on Matt's experience and say, look, I mean, entrepreneurs work without a safety net even at the best of times. And if you think about how they survived and how they're the backbone for how we're building forward, I would bet on them 200 times out of 100 each time. But I think in today's world, things can't be done by any one single company, any one single institution, any one single policymaker alone. We have to think about this as Team Canada, Team Ontario, and get after the result. Because I still maintain, I think my first company I built on I started with my 3 credit cards. We ended with $1 billion sale, but in between there, had to go through about 3 different cycles. I'm just going to say I should have died 3 different times over at least, because it wasn't about the bookends of that story. It was about sort of all the things that happened between. So we have to basically find a way to take the choke points out for great entrepreneurs like Matt. I think we have a shot to actually do this. The Valley, Silicon Valley, if you think about that, it was a 90-year journey. It started from aerospace to go to semiconductors, to go to instrumentation before semiconductors, actually, to go to social media, to go to software. It had a 90-year journey. And I think we have a chance to build in Ontario a global destination for the innovation economy, where we have a multi-generational impact that's built around the talent that's already assembling here. Matt, I hope you're seeing a brain gain these days, a net brain gain, because I was fighting a brain drain the entire time I was building companies. But I think when we think about sort of what can we do here, there's this moment in time. I mean, I think already in the first half of this year, Claudia, correct me if I'm wrong, there's been more money raised in the first half of this year than all of last year combined. And last year was historic for Canada. So we have to take our moment and work with the momentum that we have and build around our great entrepreneurs. When I think about big impact areas where Ontario can drive asymmetrical economic success and massive impact, I think about how do we actually harness the work and the energy and the resilience of our entrepreneurs and the innovation economy in general to address these big impacts. Climate change that you mentioned, Claudia, that's a 730 megaton problem in terms of GHGs for Canada annually. And I don't see a pathway to net zero without really harnessing the work of our entrepreneurs, whether it's in terms of carbon capture, whether it's in terms of autonomous AI. BrainBox does an autonomous AI for retrofitting to buildings. Matt, the circular economy. There's no way for us to address the goals that we've now committed to without really relying on the backs of our entrepreneurs. What do we need to take the choke points off of Matt to grow global category leadership? That's the question, because I still maintain capital doesn't lead, capital follows. So what do we need to do to equip Matt to basically build global category leadership that then builds the employment, that then builds an ecosystem around Matt himself, that then basically attracts more talent, that then basically gets markets built? I think that's the key. And I think we can do this.
I would agree with you, Young. The key is the entrepreneurs. I firmly believe that we have some of the greatest, if not the greatest, entrepreneurs anywhere in the world. And I'll say that, anywhere in the world. And the reason I say that is because we have one of the most diverse groups of entrepreneurs anywhere in the world. You talked about the phenomenal funds raised over the last 6 months. One of those fundraisers was Apply Board. And if you think about Martin Basiri, he came to Canada as an immigrant in 2010. 2010 wasn't that far ago, because I'm kind of canceling out the last 2 years. So that really was not that long ago. And he came as an immigrant, as a student to the University of Waterloo from Iran. Fast forward to today, his company Apply Board has a valuation of 4 billion Canadian dollars. Like, my mind just blew with that comment. And I often wonder, because we worked with Martin when he just came. We had a small program that connected early stage companies to angel investors, and he kind of participated in that. And I often wonder, would Martin have been able to build Apply Board in Silicon Valley? And almost everyone would say, yes, absolutely. And I would say, I don't think so. I'm not sure if he would have, because the way he built Apply Board was on a problem that he experienced himself and that he was trying to solve. He was an international student. He came to Canada from Iran. He knew there are hundreds of thousands of if not millions of international students globally that struggle to get into academic institutions in countries like the US, in countries like Canada. And he really understood those pain points. And he was able to get the supports that he needed as a young student who was an immigrant from Iran. And so I think we need to be able to support those types of entrepreneurs, leverage and embrace that type of diversity. But how do we help them? Your second question. Often people think that, we need to. It's capital, it's talent, and it's customers, and that's absolutely true. But I think we can do a lot more on the customers. We shouldn't only focus on helping entrepreneurs develop their technologies, but we need to start adopting those technologies. We need to ensure that our public and private sectors become first customers and early adopters of those technologies. I would challenge every academic institution in Canada to use Apply Board. I would challenge every government organization or agency to use the multitude of those technologies that are being developed and procure. When I say use, I mean procure, pay them money, customers, right? So not pilots and demonstrations, but actually pay and procure these technologies that are developed here in Canada, get them adopted, and help these companies scale. So I think that's the opportunity and the shift we need to do as we start thinking about how do we help entrepreneurs. Talent, absolutely, and I'm sure we're going to be talking about about that capital, very important, but young, as you say, capital follows opportunity, right? But the customer piece, I think there is a lot more that we can do on the customer piece.
So much amazing insight. And Matt, you are the entrepreneur. You're the founder on our panel today. What do you need? How can we better help you and so many other founders like you?
That's, it's a big question. For me, I have to say, I started my entrepreneurial journey back in 2012. And when I first started down the path of being an entrepreneur, I had no idea that innovation hubs existed, that there was funding available. I was in my basement trying to get a business off the ground and was so focused on all parts of the business. So I guess, in terms of what we need, sometimes it's just awareness of these programs. Truthfully, I don't know how to accomplish that, but I'm sure there's lots of people on the call that could figure that part of it out in terms of how do we get these programs in front of early stage entrepreneurs that really need it. Because I think once you hit a certain size and scale, then certainly you're aware, of the different organizations. And you also, truthfully, internally have the resources available to pursue those opportunities, just in terms of some of the administration work that needs to be done to even, apply and secure some of the funding that's available. So I think, maybe reducing administration burden would be a great place to start as well. I think making sure that, people are aware that there are supports available for really entrepreneurs at every stage of their journey. I think would be extremely helpful because, again, I just had no idea, when I first started. And I do want to touch on, the customer side, though. Claudia brought up some really interesting points around, in particular, the customers and really challenging maybe organizations to purchase, locally or Canadian innovations. I think that's a really interesting point. I wonder, though, in some ways, if it goes both ways, in terms of, the organizations, the companies as we're building, we're often looking across the border to where the opportunity may lie, or maybe more globally, where sometimes, there's opportunity right here in our own backyard that we're not even considering. So maybe that's a challenge for founders out there, including myself, to focus sometimes in your own backyard. I think that it's really a great point that I wanted to underline.
There is so much. Go ahead, Young.
Just so many thoughts as well flowing through my head. But if we want to take the building blocks of talent and capital and customers for a second, because those are pretty decent pillars to really build on. I think when we're thinking about big areas of global asymmetrical opportunity for Ontario entrepreneurs, we might want to think about the role of policy. Because the industries we're starting to talk about typically have some role from a regulatory perspective to actually unlock growth. There's, we have a great example with talent, right? I mean, federally, there's the global talent stream, which, for the first time, I started seeing this net brain gain effect a couple of years back. And while Donald Trump was definitely a factor in terms of moving talent north, thank God for us, it wasn't the only factor. We just made it so easy from a policy perspective for us to recruit from outside, such that our own entrepreneurs and companies that are locating here found it easier to be able to attract talent from outside of North America. That, I think, is a game changer. And that's one of the reasons why we have the fuel, because talent's the fuel that drives, the innovation sector. But think about what we need to do for unlocking the capital, with a few exceptions, but not yet for the entire majority. There's over $1 trillion worth of capital sitting on the sidelines. What do we need to do to unlock that and get that flowing into this sector? This is Canadian dollars, this is Ontario dollars, but there's policies by which we can basically say, if this is a bet we want to make, how do we drive asymmetrical flow of that capital into Ontario's entrepreneurs? And then on customers, the same thing. How do we basically create policies that favor entrepreneurs so that they can actually build global companies? As much as I love the fact that Matt has said he's willing to look for local customers, it's so frustrating when your customers outside of Canada are much faster at making decisions and much more capable at adopting these solutions. And I think we have to get a way to kind of increase the velocity by which we do business with each other. and know that this is a game where we have to take every advantage, and we need our policymakers and regulators to back us in taking those advantages to increase the velocity, because we have to play to win right now. It's not about playing to make the playoffs. And so I'll leave it at that. There's some very interesting things happening that Minister Fedeli mentioned right up front. And, the seed funding, for instance, is still an area which, in spite of all the capital that's been raised, has not really been addressed at scale. So I'm really happy to actually be able to partner with Vic and the Ontario government to try and address that kind of a thing. We got to hit every single choke point there and get velocity into this so that we give a hand to the entrepreneurs that can build that kind of potential.
We're addressing so many of the important opportunities through this discussion already. And I certainly want to pick up on one that I hear a great deal about, and I think you all do as well: talent, that talent challenge as we look forward in this post-pandemic era. We know it's our greatest competitive advantage, and it's also one of our greatest strengths. According to CBRE's 2021 Top Tech Talent Report, 3 of the top markets in all of North America for top tech labor concentration are right here in Ontario. Ottawa ranking highest, with Toronto and Waterloo region in 3rd and 4th. And so that is just immense opportunity. But in this post-pandemic world, we know that new strategies are required. You've all spoken to them. International firms are hiring and looking to our great Ontario talent at record rates with big compensation packages. The virtual world has enabled more and more people to work remotely. What are some of the strategies you're seeing on the ground before we move to one of our questions from the audience? I'd invite anyone to jump in.
On the talent thing, maybe I can just do a quick thing and then give the floor back. But one of the things I'm most proud of that I got involved in last year was co-founding a group called the Coalition of Innovation Leaders Against Racism. It's short, CLAR for short. When we really understand that talent is the fuel that makes this entire flywheel turn, for that reason alone, you'd want to make sure that you don't leave half the talent sitting on the sidelines. And I'm talking about gender talent, and I'm talking about our Indigenous, Black, and people of color talent who have had to fight their way into version 1.0 of the innovation economy. What happens if we unleash that through policy and unleash that through inviting our underrepresented talent to actually lead and participate in version 2.0? Because we have a bit of a blank canvas to write upon right now. I think that's one of the keys. And if we can do this, again, it reflects the values of Canadians. I think in Toronto, there's over 50% diversity of our population. I think in Ontario, it's 30% overall, unless I'm not mistaken. We can go on and on about this particular topic, but this goes right to the heart of how we build an incredibly competitive innovation economy by doing it our way. And doing it our way creates followership, and followership creates more of a pipeline into what we need. Without that, we basically have all the great ideas in the world and it'll dry up. So I think that's one thing I'd suggest.
Excellent. We're incredibly honored to be a part of CLAR. It's an amazing initiative and completely agree with all of the points that you've raised. Claudia, I know that you are certainly addressing talent as well through the great work you're doing at OCI with your team. Any final thoughts before we move into a question from our audience?
Sure. So I'd like to take a little bit of a different perspective on the challenge that the pandemic has presented with respect to talent. Sonia, in your comments, you know, the pandemic with the shift to remote work has now moved us into a reality where geography no longer matters. And so our talent is whereas we worried about people moving to Silicon Valley, now we worry about Silicon Valley not requiring people to move and paying them U.S. salaries while they stay here. I'd like to reframe that as that is not only a challenge for our companies, but that is also a huge opportunity for our companies. That is an opportunity for companies like Shopify, like Applyboard, like Matt's company, like every single promising high potential startup scale up company in Ontario and in Canada, because now you can recruit that talent much more easily. You can recruit that global talent much, much more easily. But you might say, well, wait a minute, we can't really pay those same Silicon Valley salaries, and we can't pay salaries in US dollars. But you know what the pandemic has done? For many people, those US dollars aren't the most important thing anymore. What is the most important thing is the ability to work for great companies that are doing amazing things, that are diverse, that are addressing global challenges, that have a sense of vision and of mission. And I think what we can do is a much better job of promoting our companies, promoting our success stories globally, not only to celebrate the success we have in Canada, but also to help our companies, these same companies, compete for that global talent. So they can attract with the same ability that pre-pandemic was fueling the brain drain. And I think that there's a lot that we as leaders in the innovation ecosystem can do in that regard. I think that there is a lot that governments can do in terms of in that regard. We have some of the best companies in the world here in Canada. We have some of the best tech companies and the fastest growing tech companies anywhere in the world here in Ontario and in Canada. And so how do we help them attract the global talent that they need and capitalize on this opportunity that the pandemic has created? Because now there is a global talent pool that every single company in the world is competing for. And so how do we help our companies compete better for that in that talent pool?
Can I build on that just a little bit, Sonia?
Please.
Yeah, just real quick. I think that's a great response. I mean, and I think that's one of the reasons I'm so excited about the investments that we're making in clean tech in particular, because these jobs really are in high demand from a technology perspective. You know, I believe that people, you know, in general want to work at companies and organizations that are making a positive impact for people on the planet. And that extends to the technology space, just like it does in almost every industry. And there's lots of studies to suggest that. So, you know, of course, we need to be competitive on compensation. We need to be flexible. We need to provide development opportunities. We need to create cultures that matter. But I think, you know, that investment in clean tech gets me really excited, because I believe that's where people want to go. The movement of technology jobs, I believe, is really headed in that space. So just wanted to touch on that. I know you want to get to audience questions, but I think it's such an important point.
It's an incredibly important point, and it builds on some of the questions that we're actually seeing from our audience. So I will draw on one now. Panelists, from your unique vantage points, do you see any overserved or underserved areas in Ontario's innovation ecosystem? It's a big, meaty question.
I can start. You know, I see a lot of supports sort of early on, even though I wasn't aware of them. I do see a lot of supports in that area. I also see supports for high growth companies that are really scaling quickly. I'd love to see more in the middle, to be honest. I think that, you know, that there's opportunity to support organizations that aren't maybe looking for the big exit, or but really trying to make an impact and a difference. I'd love to see more in that space. I'm not sure exactly what that looks like, but I do. It sort of feels like there might be a gap for those companies that are maybe in the middle.
I'd like to talk a little bit about the underserved areas. I think that when you look at the tech sector, when you look at tech companies, when you look at the leadership in those tech companies, the senior leadership, and even the kind of middle management leadership, I think that there is an opportunity for us to do more with female entrepreneurs, especially with female entrepreneurs from visible minority groups, from underserved communities, from that perspective. We can not only do better, but we can do much better. The pandemic has put women at a significant disadvantage. And I think that is a reality that everyone, whether they're in the tech sector, whether they're an entrepreneur or not, are facing. The trend to remote work is also going to disadvantage women, especially women that have families, that have young children, because it will be easier for them to work remotely. And we know that the in-person component is really important in terms of forming networks. The in-person component is really important when it comes to promotions. The in-person component is really important when it comes to, you have a few founders in the evening noodling an idea, and the next day it turns into a company. So I think we need to pay attention to female entrepreneurs in the tech sector. We need to pay attention especially to female entrepreneurs that are from disadvantaged groups and from visible minorities, especially because what the pandemic has done with respect to the reality for many women today and their professional lives.
I'm so passionate about this topic. Anyone who is acquainted with me knows this is an area that we are really, really focused on with the support of so many collaborators, including, of course, Mars and OCI. In fact, we've dedicated our entire Next Entrepreneurship Conference on the 27th to women founders and funders from every walk of life who are leading from the stage and the airwaves and sharing their lessons learned with the entire entrepreneurship community. If I get started on this, I will not stop. So I am going to move to our next question. Great advice in this panel. Thank you. Curious to hear panelists' thoughts on the role of municipal versus provincial government in accelerating innovation and SME growth outside of tech and health tech.
I think there's a role for every level of government, quite honestly, to play. We need to see our governments recognize we're all Canadian. So where the puck is going, and to be able to make some asymmetrical bets on that. Here in Toronto, you might say, look, there's a key opportunity around things like the life sciences space, research space, because we have such a density of research institutions, like world-class research institutions, and connecting them to the commercialization engine and finding a way to commercialize the IP that comes out of the U of T's of the world, the University of Waterloo's of the world. We've already been doing that, but the question is, how do we actually become resource allocation managers in doing more of that, where we have asymmetrical global opportunity? You could pick on the clean tech space as well, that Matt's from, and say, look, there is no doubt this is a multi-trillion-dollar economic category. One of the biggest risks that our municipalities and our provinces and our federal government, and quite frankly, big private sector customers and partners who act like governments as well, can make, is basically trying to zero out risk. So, your procurement thing that we talked about before, procurement from a municipality or from a province or from a government or federally, they own the most assets across Canada. But if your procurement is focused on finding the 20 prior installations and reference sites and the lowest cost, you're not going to find the really transformative opportunities that the Mats of the world are going to bring. Like, we have to basically turn this on its head and look for innovation, because that's where we're going to get our pathway forward. So I think there's a role for every single government if you think about procurement alone. And then from a regulatory perspective, building codes for buildings are municipal. Healthcare is provincial. You got carbon pricing and where federal dollars are going to go and where federal emphasis is going to go. I mean, there's a collaboration that's necessary across all levels of government.
Thank you so much. And I'm getting the signal that we are just about to conclude our incredible Powerfully panel discussion today. As we wrap up, I would love to hear from each of you for perhaps 30 seconds, one key message, one important action or takeaway that you would love to leave with the audience as they look forward and want to seize that disruptive opportunity when we emerge from the pandemic and drive our economic recovery.
I can go first. I think the one piece of advice which I at least believe would be most impactful is I would encourage all entrepreneurs to look for opportunities to collaborate. So look for opportunities to partner and collaborate with either potential customers or early adopters of your technologies, whether in the public sector, so cities, municipal governments, or at the provincial level or at the federal level, but also from the private sector perspective as well. Look for opportunities to collaborate where if you don't have the capacity or capability to do something, partner with someone who does. Partner across the academic institutions, tap into the expertise there, partner with other entrepreneurs, partner with organizations, work with organizations like Mars, like Invest Ottawa, like the Ontario Centre of Innovation. So I would say the most impactful thing that I could offer as a piece of advice is look for opportunities to collaborate and look for potential collaborators, because that's what got the Ontario innovation ecosystem through this pandemic, and that's what creates resiliency.
Thank you.
I'm going to leave last words to Matt, because it should always be about entrepreneurs anyway, but maybe that's what I'll start with, which is that it should never be about the institutions. It should always be about the entrepreneurial ecosystem and the innovation ecosystem. That's the entry point. And we said this earlier on, so let me just take Claudia's point and just reiterate that collaboration. And to me, the thing that's so hard to build, and that has been so hard to build anywhere else, is the ecosystem. This thing is an actual game changer. You can take your entry point from any of the regional innovation centers through OCI, through Mars, through Invest Ottawa, through Communitech, and you're going to end up where you need to be in this particular network. If it's not about the institution and if it's about the entrepreneur. This didn't exist when I was building my companies before. It's a game changer. So like Claudia, I would say, like, plug in, ask for the help, demand the help, get access to the pathways, drive velocity, take out inertia and transaction cost. And like, now's the time for governments to actually make their bets, and now's the time for the private sector to make their bets too. So you're meeting that point of sort of enlightened self-interest as they cross over from all these different stakeholders who need to, as an imperative, build around you, Matt. Over to you.
All right, I'll make this quick. I've got two, though, really fast, 15 seconds each. But I would say two things. Number one is, in echoing what both Claudia and Young said, really try to reach out to those local innovation hubs. I did not know about them very early in my career, but as an entrepreneur, but once I started to work with them, I truly understood the value. And we've heard from both Young and Claudia; they have incredible experiences, and that's been the biggest benefit to us as an organization, is working with people alongside us that care a lot about our growth and want to see us succeed. So that's number one, would be to reach out, and there's so much support that's available. It's incredible. The second piece is, let's get ready to meet the moment. I think this is a really exciting time for Ontario, and 2022 could be a really exciting time for entrepreneurs. So I know we're getting ready to meet the moment in spring, probably 2022, when things are really probably fully back in many of the industries that we were serving pre-pandemic. But that moment's coming, and I'm just really excited about where we're headed. And thanks again for the incredible panel.
Bold leadership and founders and entrepreneurs are at the heart of delivering on that visionary future. Matt, Young, and Claudia, it's been a privilege to join you today, and so grateful to collaborate with you in so many different ways. Wanted to thank all of our audience for being with us, and now I'm delighted to call back forward Kayla, who is going to help us to wrap up this incredible session. Kayla, welcome back.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Sonia. Thank you to our incredible panelists. I can't believe that hour just flew by with notes being taken left, right, and center. I think, the word I'm leaving here with is collaboration. It is always top of mind to the Startup Canada team. Entrepreneurs, you are not alone here, and collaboration with all of these different stakeholders is meant to make this journey as easy as possible for you. So Matt, I'll quote you in saying, let's get ready to really meet the moment. I think that's such a powerful way to end today's panel. Thanks for ending us with that statement, Matt. None of this would be possible without our key ecosystem partners and key collaborators from the Startup Canada team, including our co-presenting partners, UPS and Intuit QuickBooks, our national partners, MasterCard, BDC, and the Trade Commissioner Service, community partners, Scotiabank, Google, NACA and the Village Hive, and our event partner, Magnet. So to all of the entrepreneurs and business leaders listening here today, I wanted to quickly share some details before we wrap up regarding the Magnet Student Work Placement Program. It provides employers with wage subsidies to hire post-secondary students for paid work experiences. Really great opportunity here. Through Outcome Campus Connect, employers can apply for the subsidies and connect with over 1 million student accounts for over 100 post-secondary schools across Canada, all for free. So if you're interested, you can visit swpp.magnet.today, and we'll share the links in all of our social channels. Speaking of collaboration and other fabulous partners we have engaged today, we are lucky to not only work and live in this province, but we also have another neighbor here in Ottawa. So I am delighted to turn the screen over to our friendly neighbor, Sally Douglas, who is the Executive Director of the Innovators and Entrepreneurs Foundation, and a really, really dear friend of mine, who will officially close out our program. Over to you, Sal.
Thanks so much, Kayla, and thanks to everybody on the panel for such a robust and insightful conversation. I completely commit to taking some of your messaging and passing it forward. As Kayla explained, my name is Sally Douglas, and I am the Executive Director, a News Executive Director, very exciting, for the Innovators and Entrepreneurs Foundation. We are a national charity focused on the celebration and support of business owners in marginalized communities all across Canada. We are committed to growing this foundation so that we can reach further and have greater impact for entrepreneurs and innovators in every part of the country. One of our flagship programs is the Canny Awards, which culminates with a virtual grand finale in just 10 to 12 days from now, 12 days, forgive me, on the 3rd of November at 7 p.m. The Canny Award winners represent the very best of entrepreneurialism and innovation in Canada. We share their stories to celebrate their successes, to inspire the next generation, to highlight what is possible, even in the most challenging of circumstances, and to encourage others to take a leap into running their own business and realizing their full potential. Sharing their experiences, both good and bad, also supports advocacy to government and business representatives, helping to disrupt and bring change, and builds more opportunities to grow entrepreneurial communities and networks across the country. Because we know there's strength that comes from pulling together, something exemplified by Startup Canada and the other panelists here today. You can register for the Canny Awards on the 3rd of November at 7 p.m. on the landing page of the Foundation's website or through any of our social networks. There are so many other things to come, so please follow us through our website or on the social media networks, and watch out for announcements about our microgrant opportunities coming before the end of the year, entrepreneurial roundtables, and the launch of some really exciting new research in the new year. Thanks again for giving me this platform to shine a light on what the Innovators and Entrepreneurs Foundation is doing, and for the opportunity to be with you all today. We wish you a very happy and safe weekend.